Hello everyone. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're looking after yourselves. Yes, you must be wondering, where is Jeffrey? He's in a new place. What's going on? So I'm using Somerset House. I'm recording there. But yes, we're back with another episode of the Hustle Chronicles, our series on entrepreneurs talking about their journey, their businesses, the highs, the lows. And as I say, it's an open conversation. So rather than me just only asking the guest speakers questions, I'm going to allow them to ask me questions. It's going to be open dialogue talking about like all different forms of entrepreneurism and all the different things that come under that. But yes, we've got an amazing guest speaker with us here today with amazing tech. And just like, I don't want to ruin it. Like I always say, our guest speakers are doing incredible work and they're the only ones that can truly tell you what's going on. So instead, I'm going to hand over to Sean. Sean, how you doing? Let us know a bit about you and what you do.
Doing good. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. So I'm making this company called More Connection Co. That's what these boxes are. So if we look, we're right now on a video call. So if you look and like we're having a call on this video call, I'd like you to pay attention to a few ththings. Like essentially, like the main thing about video calls, like that is the issue, is that you can't make eye contact, right? So like you're always looking down and away. That's kind of the issue that causes a bit of disconnection, and this was really bothersome to me, and I've figured out a solution that actually makes it kind of possible to make two-way eye contact. Like people that tend to use these devices tend to say that it feels like the other person is actually making eye contact with them in the video call, like the other person is in the room with them. This is the feedback that I've gotten so far. We've been conducting like a lot of research about that I'm really excited to get into because we have some results that are preliminary that we can't actually release yet, but there's a paper being written as we speak about it. Okay. So I'm lucky enough to be a co-author on that. And yeah, I'd love to draw your attention to this video call. So and ask, how does this feel? Is there anything different that you notice?
So I think for me personally, I like this. I don't know if you guys as an audience can relate, but I know, like what you were saying, there are many times when you're doing a Teams call, a Zoom call, whatever, and you're literally just like focused on the corner because you're just like, okay, how do I look? Like if there's movement in the background, I might be like, okay, cool. It's like what's going on behind me, looking at the screen, and like you said, you're never like giving that direct eye contact. Yeah. But I like this because it's literally like I'm looking at the screen, I'm looking at the camera, and even I know as you were mentioning for like when we do like online recordings, I'm trying to position my webcam on the tripod. Oh, can I make it like the same level as the screen? So when I'm looking into the screen, it's not like I'm looking up or I'm looking down or I'm looking to the side. Like it looks like I'm looking into the camera. Yeah. But this is something that's really good because it means that like when I'm looking into the video call now, it's not anything that's sort of like, I don't feel like put off or like, oh, this is a bit awkward. I feel like, no, actually, you know what? This is actually like an interaction. And I'm sure from the audience perspective, the way you guys see the video, you'll be thinking, wow, this is like he's looking straight into the camera and all of this. So yeah, I really like it.
Awesome, man. Yeah. I mean, all that one individual device is doing is really correcting your camera angle. So it uses just your phone and your laptop. If you have an Apple device, there's like Apple has like a continuity camera feature that makes it really easy for your iPhone to be connected to your laptop for any video call. But if you have an Android or Windows, like Jeff and Jeffrey, we were figuring this out beforehand, and we're still running, I'm still running into some issues about it. There are free apps like this one called Camo. There's another one called Droid Cam. I'm thinking that Camo is kind of the most, the best one. But remains to be seen. We have a lot of testing to do. And that essentially, it's just connecting your phone to your laptop as a webcam. And then what this is doing is that it's positioning your camera in the center of your screen so that when you look at your screen, you're looking into the camera. But the really interesting thing is that, so like right now, like it kind of feels like I'm able to make something like eye contact. It's not eye contact, but it's something on video call like eye contact. And yeah, like there's a lot of, we did an experiment about that.
Okay.
And yeah, but I want to ask you, like, it's more important to me to ask, like, as user feedback, like, do you feel like that? Like, do you feel anything like that when you're on the call? Like,
I'd say like I feel very just like comfortable speaking. Like literally like what I was saying before, that sometimes I'm always conscious of, especially I think for both big and small meetings, whether you're meeting like your whole team at work, or whether you're just like having a one-to-one with someone, stuff like this is really good because sometimes you might feel like, oh, you know, you're looking down or you're looking like away from the camera because you've got other stuff you need to sort out. Or you might not even turn your camera on at like a team meeting because you're just like, literally, you know, I don't like the idea of like seeing myself on this, like I won't be looking at the screen, I'll be looking in the corner. And it's not, and I think someone who was on the podcast made a joke like when we were still in lockdown, because they were just like, literally every time I'm in a Teams meeting, I just focus on that corner. I'm just like, how do I look? How am I moving? Like, how do my interactions seem? But yeah, no, this is something that's really comfortable. It's something that makes me feel like, actually, you know what? Like I can look into the camera and it feels a bit more personal, even though, as you mentioned, like there's nothing going on here that's like.
Does it actually? Don't lie.
No, honestly, no, I promise. Like
I want only the truth here.
No,
like,
honestly, like this is definitely something that I feel like, especially like I know I don't like. Obviously, I do the podcast, so if I was anxious in front of a camera, like to have been doing it for this long, I would have been like, I would have got over it.
Wrong profession.
Yeah, wrong profession. But literally, I think because I know, especially there were people on my course, there were people in teams that I've worked in that have always said like, oh, I'm a bit conscious to turn my camera on because like, you know, I don't always feel like, you know, if I'm not looking at the screen, I feel like, what will people think I'm looking at? Or, oh, I'm not sure. Like people might think, I think also that's another thing, because when you're on, like, especially I think more team meetings than like an individual one, because if you're on a one-to-one, you might just try and look into the person's face if they're at the center of the camera, which is fine. But when you've got like 15 people on a call, you're kind of just like, where do you look? Because you're just like, do I look into the webcam? Do I look, you know, to the person to my left, the person to my right, someone at the top of the screen, someone at the bottom? So I think something like this is really good because it means even if when you are in like a big team call, you're still looking at the center of the camera, you're still looking into the center of the screen. So no one's going to feel like, oh, actually, you know, I've got this extra pressure on me because I have to, you know, make sure I'm looking specifically in certain places because, you know, this person asked me a question and I have to look at them, or, you know, and I think also one final thing is that because I've experienced it and I know I've also been someone that's done it, but when you're on, like, especially as a uni student, you're on a big call and, you know, maybe it's a lecture and you're feeling, actually, you know, I don't want to turn my camera on. A lot of people, I know that like a lot of people are upset because I know certain universities were emailing students to be like, if you're on a call, you have to have your camera on because, you know, the lecturer needs to feel that like interaction and stuff, or like, oh, our classmates need to feel that interaction. But I feel having something like this, even like if I was in a call and everyone else didn't have their camera on, I personally like this because you're able to like have that one-to-one interact. Like I'm still able to feel a connection even if like there were 40 people on this call and they didn't have their cameras on, because I wouldn't feel like, okay, you know, they might be thinking I'm distracted because I'm looking to the left or I'm looking to the right or I'm looking somewhere else. So to me personally, I love this. This is yeah, this is amazing, man. This is awesome. This is really good. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, you're gonna get one for free, I'm sure.
Thank
you.
you.
When the design's finalized and I'm making them, you're getting them.
Oh,
but
wow.
I still need to work next week. I have a meeting about that actually.
Honestly, man, like it's as long as the final product is something that you're happy with, that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Well, going off the connection. So I did my master's at Brunel. I did psychology, and I also did another master's before that, also in psychology. But I needed to do two because the one at Queen Mary was not certified by the British Psychological Society because it was a new course. So I ended up at Brunel that way. And so this is relevant because I at Queen Mary, I met a professor, and she was my supervisor, and we did an experiment on something called interbrain synchronization. So interbrain synchronization is this crazy thing. It's absolutely insane that just happens, and no one, like, there's lots of documentation about it, lots of research about it, lots of scenarios where it happens, but essentially in social interaction, your brain, and you as a podcast are going to love this, is that your brain waves literally synchronize. Like your brain and my brain right now, to some small degree, are doing something similar by a percentage. Like the neurons are firing in the same rate in specific parts of your brain. And we can go into that if you want. I might need to look up some names. So my professor, Dr. Caroline DiBernardi-Luft, she discovered that eye contact is associated with stronger interbrain synchronization. And also, there's lots of other scenarios. There's if you're cooperating for a task, like they did something. There was an experiment that people did where they played a game of Jenga, and they found interbrain synchronization there. In Dr. Luft, or Caro. Caro, she's also the on the advisory board of this company, which I'm lucky enough to have her. To be honest, she's incredibly intelligent. And a mentor to me, and I look up to her in many ways. But she, in her experiment, they had people make awkward eye contact for 5 seconds, and had or I don't remember the number, but a small amount of time, and they had EEG machines on, so scanning their brain waves, and they matched up that in the gamma frequency, just the frequency of the neurons firing, they had synchronization when they made eye contact, and something, and then also friends had higher interbrain synchronization. And there's also other experiments showing, romantic partners have, incredibly high synchronization. Strangers still do have synchronization to a small degree, but much less, obviously. Well, not obviously, but makes sense. And so basically interbrain synchronization is associated really closely with emotional connection. It's basically when brain waves are synchronized a lot, there's probably some strong emotional connection happening there. And so I built 2 devices for Caro, because she actually moved to Brunel the same year that I went to Brunel for my master's. And I built devices that didn't use a phone; they used a webcam, and it was a little bit different in the design, but the function was exactly the same. You look at the screen, you're looking in the camera, and we had 2 people. We had people, make eye contact, awkward eye contact through my device. So, if we're to look right now, like we're doing, and so we made them. FaceTime them. Okay, it's a psychology study. Choose my words carefully.
We promise that no one was forced to do it. They all had a choice in there.
Yes. But so they made eye contact through the device and on a video call, and then we also had a control group where they had a webcam above, the same as a normal video call would be. And we also scanned their brainwaves during that time with EEG machines. And it was preliminary, but we found that, Dr. Luft found, Caro found, that the interbrain synchronization there was interbrain synchronization experienced with eye contact through these devices in the same frequency as real life eye contact. Wow. We really found that. And then in the webcam version, there was not. So, I'm looking to essentially, I'm looking to see if this is something that can improve online therapy, because eye contact is a known therapeutic mechanism. you don't need to tell any psychologist why eye contact is important. And it's just part of establishing a good working relationship, a good therapeutic alliance. It's called, you need a good therapeutic alliance. You need a good match with your therapist, and you need to get along because you're working together to, improve your mental health, improve, whatever you're looking to get out of therapy. You need to get along and have an emotional connection. That's part of therapy. It's about your emotions. So, this could be a serious tool for that if there's interbrain synchronization, the same as real life eye contact, because there's several studies that show that eye contact is important for that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think even like on two aspects to highlight is, one, as you mentioned, the eye contact thing, not even just like you said, like just for therapy, but like if you go into job interviews, if you go to, like if you do public speaking, anything like that, literally, as you mentioned, they're telling people, like, if you're going for a job interview, you want to shake, like you're going to a job interview, you're meeting the person for the first time, you look them in the eye and you shake their hand. Like you don't feel, like you don't put any pressure, you don't sort of like, I mean, I also know, like I said, sometimes the nerves get the best of you. So I'm not always like staring down at, and again, it's eye contact, but not intense, like just like a staring contest, like I'm staring down the person I'm trying to get a job from or like anything like that. But like you said, like having that eye contact is good.
That's a bit too much.
Yeah, we're not saying like, you have to just, you see them across the table.
It's two-way. If someone's staring at you, and you're staring at, that doesn't mean you're synchronizing
Exactly.
with them. It's a connection,
Exactly.
It's like, I don't want to connect with that person. It has to be two ways,
100%. Yeah. And like, even like I found when I do like public speaking stuff, as you mentioned, like when you look to, like people even say it, and I think even my drama teacher said it as well, like many years ago, doing flashbacks to GCSE drama. But she was saying, like, anytime you do like acting, and it applies to public speaking, look for like specific people in the audience to connect your, like what you're saying with, because if you're talking to people, and as you mentioned, podcasters, I think people generally don't think about how cameras and all this stuff is positioned, whether it's vlogs, whether it's like podcasts, whether it's like films. Like if a director or a podcaster wants to connect with their audience, they will look into the camera. They will ensure that, like, when they're talking and it's focused on them, they're looking specifically at it. Even like I know, like, especially with like online recordings, I do it all the time. There's something super important that I'm mentioning. I look specifically straight into the camera, and as you mentioned, because like I don't have something like this, I'm usually like trying to position the webcam at the same level. So if there's anything that's specific to the audience that I want to like say as like something key, I'll turn and specifically look to the camera and I'll just focus on the camera. So 100% it's that connection is definitely there.
Well, something interesting, it's not exactly related to this. Well, it kind of is, but there's studies that show that your brain, same areas of your brain activate as, when you interpret video call, video like.
No,
okay, let me try that again. Your brain reacts similarly as real life when you interpret that someone is looking at you on a video as in real life. So, there's a few studies about that.
100%.
So that makes sense.
100%.
That the importance of that intuitively.
And even the second thing I was going to mention is, so I know like we have we've got an affiliate program with an online therapy app, BetterHelp. So and like I think kind of like what you mentioned that like just having on online, like seeing someone, and especially like not even just for therapy, like if you're just having, I know like when lockdown was happening, like you'd have online Zoom calls with friends and stuff. But like if everyone's got their cameras off, or if people aren't necessarily looking at you, you'll just be like, oh, you know what, this is great, but this is a bit awkward, or I'm talking to my friends.
It's
but
a disconnect.
Yeah, but when literally, as you said, like you've got your cameras on, like I know we like a group of friends of mine, we were just playing like this online version of Monopoly, like on a free website, like an online version of Monopoly, but literally like when we didn't have our cameras on because like let's say we're trying to boost the internet connection or whatever, literally, as you said, like you just didn't really feel engaged. You were just like, okay, cool, like I'll just do this, but there's nothing special. Like, oh, I'll play the game and, I might just be working on something on the side. But when I was like having sessions with like my friend, like when we were just like literally just talking with our cameras on, just chatting to each other, like there's that connection that it's just like, because I think even like now I look back on it and I'm just like, oh yeah, that was from home. Like I wasn't like just, I don't know, like just chilling with them somewhere. I was like, no, this was literally when you had to be at home and I could still get that personal like connection. And yeah, even as you mentioned, people said during lockdown, like having a phone call with someone is great, but having like a specific, like this is a video, like I'm doing a video call with you, I'm seeing like what's in your background, I'm having this with you. It helped.
Yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely. Like used to be in a long distance relationship. No, not anymore. Thank God. but it's very evident, like it's very evident in that situation that there's such a disconnect, like when you're on a phone call as opposed to a video call, as opposed to this, like when you're, and now we have science to back it up of saying like, hey, look, like this actually, you have social synchronization as if in real life through this. And, that's so important. Like I don't even know like all of the applications for that, but like, it works great for, an eye contact correction device. That's, the central function, of just purchasing one. So like, it's, in my opinion, I'm a little biased, but it's a bit better than like any artificial intelligence
100%.
or software corrected eyes, because you don't want that in therapy. That you don't want to be interpreting that someone is looking at you when they're not. Like if you're a psychologist, you want to understand what's actually happening, and I want as little interference with that as possible.
100%.
So like, would be amazing if at some point, an online therapy company like BetterHelp or any online therapy company could offer, hey, would you like online therapy with eye contact or not? Here's the science behind it so that you can make a decision for yourself, because some people might not want it, might be too intense, especially if you have like, this might not be for someone who's a paranoid schizophrenic, for example. Probably not. Like you might, my mom is actually, my entire family are doctors, and my mom is a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and she's on the phone with these. They're in the United States. I have a bit of an accent, but. Like with the paranoid schizophrenic patients, they just want to call. They don't want, they're afraid that their telephone is doing stuff. Like this is not for them. But for someone who's, just going to therapy to better themselves, or, maybe is a rational human, most of the time, then, it might be beneficial to have that connection to increase the quality of your therapy. And then, for all the applications that you've been discussing, like, it would be, it's going to make you look better because you're looking into the camera. 100%. And, I think it's more down to, personal preference if you care about the artificial intelligent eyes there. But I would.
No, I definitely agree. And even I think one other thing to add is like you mentioned with, like I know I mentioned like job interviews and stuff like the eye contact, but I know, as you mentioned with the therapy thing, I did online interviews for jobs that I was applying for, and as you mentioned, I was terrified that, because obviously when you're at home, like when you're in person, they can know if you've got notes and stuff and you're reading off something. But I was so concerned that, if I'm not looking into the camera, they're going to think, he's got like a cheat sheet or something, or he's getting answers from somewhere else, or he's got like, all these questions on a screen that he's pre-prepared. And I was just like, okay, like literally, as you mentioned, I'm just sitting there terrified. Like, okay, look, Jeffrey, just look into the webcam. Don't look into the corner. Don't look into the corner. And I don't know.
You gotta hide selfies.
Exactly. Because I think even the people who probably interviewed me, they probably had no idea that this was going through my head in the thing, during the interview. But I was 100% thinking that. I was like, if I don't show that I'm engaged, if I don't look into the camera and show that I'm looking there, even if they're not, I'm like, I don't want them to think, he's looking at pre-made answers, or he's like, he's got his, like, I mean, yes, you can have your CV up, but like, it's like, you don't want to make it seem like your interview isn't, like you said, that still with that level of personal connection, because there are things that, like, I know, like in an in-person interview, you're not going to have like a cheat sheet of questions to prepare for. You're not going to have like, oh, if they ask me this, I'm going to say this. You're going to just basically, you might have a notepad with you in the interview to just write down some questions or comments that come as you're thinking, but you're not going to be like writing that. You're not going to like open up your notebook and say, yeah.
You want to be, presenting yourself well to this person.
100%. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think like job interviews, even like I said, like student interviews, or presentations where you're doing a solo presentation, maybe it's online, and you're just like, oh gosh, like, I don't want it to seem that like I'm reading off this. Having that will be really good to help with that.
Yeah, I think so too. Hopefully. I must stress the two-way eye contact is only if you have two devices. The one is the eye is just going to correct your eyes, which is good.
Yeah, that's definitely
used for that too.
Yeah, I think one thing to I guess the next thing to sort of go on to is.
Oh, can I say one quick thing?
Go ahead.
So I've actually forgot to say. So also in the study that we conducted or that Caro conducted at Brunel, Dr. Luft. So there was a creativity task that participants did, and where they were drawing, where they were instructed to be as creative as possible and draw something, and then they had a call either on my device or on a webcam, and then continue drawing. And people that had a call on the webcam found the conversation to be generally unhelpful, and the creativity in the drawings were less. And I don't know the specifics of how creativity was judged, but surely that will come out in the paper soon. And the people who used the device to call found the conversation helpful, and their creativity was not decreased as much. And so, much more research needs to be done. Like I talked today, I don't know if you know Dr. Spinelli. She's also associated with Brunel. And, I'm looking to, conduct a study with therapists and patients eventually, and, see what it's like in session and get everyone's feedback about that and have some metrics about this. But yeah, I think that there's reason enough to see that this can be beneficial for emotional connection and therapy and other aspects too.
100%. Continuing on the conversation, I think one key thing which you guys might not be able to see from like whether you're watching it through this, like the camera here or the camera there, you might see it from the camera there, but obviously we've got the boxes here. But I think the really cool thing about it is it's not overly complicated. One, it's not like a big bulky thing, and two, it's not overcomplicated to set up. It's like it's very lightweight. It's easy to use. I guess one question I'd like to ask was that always the plan? Because was the plan to, with the design of the product, was it also to include that aspect of like, we don't want it to be like super, tech heavy, like it's got all these cables, or it's a big massive box that you've got all these wires running in it, and it's going to like, put so much weight on a laptop, because literally this is on my laptop now, but I can see how light it is, whereas compared with, funny enough, my webcam, when I put that on my laptop to try and keep it at eye level, sometimes it's so heavy that it just like causes my laptop to... Yeah, I'm telling you, man, this is amazing. So, yeah, I guess that's my question. Was this, like, having it, like, as lightweight and as compact, was that always the plan?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. So the way kind of this idea occurred is that I originally wanted to make like a virtual reality type of version of this. And then I was like, oh, Facebook will do that. And they've done that. and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Can't do that. Like, so when I spoke with, Caro about this idea, she pointed me to a YouTube video, like of a DIY guy called DIY Perks, and he built a device that works really similar to this. Like it's the same thing, except the design is different. So the mirror is not part of it. This is all, going into the patent, so I don't want to get too detailed about it. But there are some key design differences that make this much different than that. And one of them is that you can fold it up and it becomes like this small. You saw when I brought them in, and we'll unfold them after, or we'll fold them up back after this. And the idea was to something that wasn't too bulky, that you could put in your backpack or briefcase or whatever, and it's not going to break the bank to buy, because the materials are they're high quality, but it's not like it's not going to break the bank. Like, there's not any electronics in this. It's just positioning the electronics and the position that they need to be so that you can have the greatest impact that you can have. So yeah, I mean, I actually used to live in Hounslow. Okay. And there's a long train, the Piccadilly line here, and I would just be on this train, like, didn't have on Piccadilly line, not having any service. I'm like, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about design problems, and I'm like, how can I make this, design the best, and then I can do as good as I can do, and I did that. And I came up with the folds and all of this stuff. And then I took it to, the designers at Central Research Laboratory, who are now, how I hire designers, and which is awesome. I love that. It's so cool. And, they're just brilliant. And, so they knew, the best materials to use, and have given additional feedback. And the next version of this, the current issues that we're having are, there's some durability issues, and the material to hold the phone, we're going to, as you saw with yours, it kind of slides a little bit if the phone is too thin. So we are going to make a little holder for the phone, as well as 3D print some stuff to make it more durable, and only have the setup. Even, if the setup is the setup, it is it is self-explanatory after you do it one time, but I'm going to make it so that there's only one way to set it up. It's easy to use, and anyone can do it. And I'm going to have a video explaining everything. That's 5 minutes, and that's kind of the way that I'm going to roll it out. So yes, design was at the forefront of me making this.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because I think, as you mentioned there, that like a lot of, I think two things. So like one, as you mentioned with business design, sometimes people just like, they've got all the craziest ideas. They're like,
also, sometimes I have a twitch. Sorry.
No.
That's just in case you're wondering what that is.
No, honestly, no need to apologize. But yeah, no, sometimes people will have like the craziest ideas when it comes to their like business. They'll be like, oh yeah, I have to, I want to like revolutionize the world with this like super cool thing. And then they're just like, oh yeah, but have you thought about how it's going to be designed, how it's going to work? And people will just be like, oh, I didn't know that, like, certain materials can't work this way, or they can't fold this way, or, if they're next to other things, they might heat up quickly. Because I think, as you mentioned, like, one really cool thing about this is obviously phones themselves naturally like to get quite warm. And if you've got like a metal like casing, that's going to just be like super, well, it's going to heat up the phone even quicker. But as you said, like, because of the material it's made from, like, I'm not conscious, like, yeah, my phone will get hot, but like, I'm not conscious of that being an issue.
It's a thin cardboard. Like, it's a thin cardboard. It's high quality cardboard, but it really is just cardboard. And that's good. That's sustainable. Yeah. Like, you can recycle that.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing, which leads to my second point that you were mentioning about, like, sometimes I think you do, like, it's funny, but sometimes you do need like a long commute to think about your business, or to think about what you want to do. Because, I know, as soon as you mentioned it, I was just like,
I don't know, I want to go back.
Honestly, like, the amount, like, when I was at Brunel, like, the amount, like, people probably don't know this, but like the amount of stuff I was thinking on, like whether it's pick up the mic or any of the other stuff I do, like
look what it's given you.
Exactly. Like long commute, people throw commutes. They're just I don't like. I've got like an hour journey or 2 hour journey, and I'm just like no, like what we were talking here today. Like just think about like I had before when I was at Brunel doing my undergraduate, like I was doing like poetry on the tube. I was just like,
Awesome, man.
yeah, literally, I was just like, oh, because I need to go back. I keep saying I'm going to go back to it. I promise. Before the end of the year, I'll go back to it. But I used to do a lot of like poetry, and then I was literally just like, I don't have time to do it when I get home because I'm tired from uni. Can't really do it at uni because like there was no time. So I was like, actually, most of the time, if I'm on the tube, I might read. But if I'm not reading, I might just be like, cool, like, let's do something else. But yeah, literally, as you mentioned, like, so now I just like, I have a notebook with me everywhere I go, and I'm just like, cool, let's just sit down, let's think. Even like, I'm probably I wouldn't say the worst, but I saw Stephen Bartlett do like a video about it, and he said like entrepreneurs have this thing of that they're like, as soon as they've got an idea, they're like full steam ahead. So I'm trying to like ease up on that and think about like what can I actually do. But one thing that I think is really important to mention is if you are sort of thinking about like developing your business or you've got a business idea you want to go into, is kind of like what we mentioned here. Sometimes you just need to like attend other stuff or to, whether it's a long commute or go to events. Because sometimes, even me, I always bring my like notepads with me as much as possible because sometimes, as we're sort of like talking about here, a business idea just comes. I might be at like a speaker event and, everyone else is writing notes on what the speaker's saying, but I'm just there like, okay, the speaker talked about this. This is really cool. Okay, how can I do this to pick up the mic? And I'm just like, oh, well, I could do this. And I'm just sitting there writing and people are just looking and I'm just like, yeah. I'm like, they must be thinking, oh, he's like writing word for word what this guy's saying. And I'm just like, no, I'm thinking about all this like ideas that can appear from nowhere. I think one final thing to mention about this is, that whole idea of like having a notebook with me actually came because I heard that Freddie Mercury had like a dream. He had not a dream journal, but it was more of like anytime he had like a really creative idea that he had like he was sleeping, had a dream, and it just came, he would just write it in that notebook. He put it under his pillow, just wake up in the middle of the night, write it down, and like he'd work on it in the morning. And don't quote me on this because I don't know for definite. I think I saw it on Instagram, so it's questionable at most, but I think that the melody or part of the melody for Bohemian Rhapsody came like it just he dreamt it and was just like, okay, cool. How can I actually like now make this a thing? Which that's why I always say like if you don't want to have like a notebook under your pillow or next to your pillow, that's cool. But like if you've got a long work commute or you're commuting to uni, have a notebook with you. Because I think this will definitely be the final thing on it is. I preferred, like, honestly, on the word, I could talk for ages.
Okay. There's nothing wrong.
But one of the things, like, I prefer writing, if I've got an idea, yes, I've got my phone, but I prefer writing it in a notebook because I feel like, especially when you write it down, there's more of that, like, okay, now I'm, like, actually having a bit of a disconnect. I'm not necessarily, like, going to be tempted by, oh, my phone, like, I just saw a notification that, there's this new video out, or like, oh, a friend sent me, like, I got a message about like some random thing, or like I got an email about something. I'm like, no, okay, this commute is going to just be focused on trying to do, like, what can I do to pick up the mic, or what can I do for my personal development before I get home? Because
Amazing.
you'll get home, and like, I think a lot of people will find this, you'll get home, and especially if you've been working, you'll be tired from work, so you'll be like, I can't do it, I'm tired, I don't want to do anything this evening. And then at work, obviously, you can't do it. And then even if you're a uni student, you might be like, cool, but I've got like loads of different pieces of coursework. But for me, I was just like, the honest truth is, like, I'm not going to be working, the Metropolitan Line's above ground, but I was like, I probably won't be working on like coursework or anything like from uni on my commute. So I was like, if I'm not reading a book and I'm like, cool, let's just try and do something, then I'm like thinking about how the business can grow. So definitely like,
amazing.
Yeah.
I don't remember what quote it is, but I've heard a quote about notebooks that they're like idea nets. It's like a net for your ideas. So I write, I don't know, like in my journal, in my notes app on my phone, any idea, anything I'm writing there, like stream of consciousness, like feelings, anything, like it's just very helpful. Yeah, like 100%. You never know what you can come up with, like funny, like talking something you said earlier with acting. So I used to live in Chicago, and I don't do this anymore. I'm not gonna go do it again, probably, maybe. But I used to do stand-up comedy. I used to try and do it. I did it like 4 nights a week. Like I really was trying to do it, and it's a lot of fun. And everyone sucks at the beginning. But you got to make eye contact. You got to make one person laugh. That's the thing.
That's the thing.
That really is the thing. And I think that definitely went into, the importance of eye contact, like of making that a thing in my life. I don't know.
No, 100%. I definitely agree. Because even like you mentioned stand-up comedy, I know there's this comedian that I follow on Instagram called Kyra Gray, and she was talking about like how she got into comedy. And as you mentioned, I didn't actually know about this until I told someone who used to went to Brunel, did creative writing, and they confirmed it, that a lot of creative writing, I don't know if it's just in the UK or if it's like across the board, but they have a module on stand-up comedy.
Oh, that's awesome.
So like creative writing students, they have a module where for the most part, I've been told it's an optional module because they don't want to force people to like try and do stand-up comedy and just
you
feel
force yourself to do it.
Honestly, like
it's something you can do.
I was just like, it genuinely, like, it is courageous to get, because I'm just like, as an audience member, like I've always said, I never, like, if I was ever to go to a comedy thing, I'd never sit at the front, because I know if you're in the front row, that you're going to be the person they connect. They're going to look at you. You're getting talked to.
You're getting talked to. Your clothes are getting made fun of. Everything. Everything in the world.
Honestly, and like I think from the amount of comedy, like not comedy sketches, like stand-up comedy I've seen, like literally as you said, like sometimes it's not even what they're wearing, sometimes it's what they're eating. It might be like a question of, they might be talking about like, oh, like what's the worst date you've ever been on? And then they'll turn to someone on a date. Is this the worst date you've been on?
Yeah,
and then there's always
that. And it's like, yeah, you gotta top that.
But literally, as you mentioned, it's the ones that do really well. It's that direct eye contact, connecting with their audience.
Yeah, that's the way. Like, that's the only way I can get anyone to laugh. There is nothing more mortifying than being up there and no one's laughing, and you're just like, oh God, like there's nowhere to hide. It's not funny, but that's the thing, and I used to, that's where this, writing in the notes app started for me, because I would just like things that I thought were funny. I would, I'm going to go on brief comedy talk here, which is that in the U.S. stand-up comedy works a bit different than in the U.K., at least starting. Okay. So in London, the open mics, here you kind of need to be a bit more successful already. You need to have, it's a show essentially. Whereas in the U.S., like there's open mics all the time, and I'm sure there are here too. I don't know, like I'm not in this world, but in the U.S., like there's open mics all the time, and everyone is just trying material all the time, and you don't have to be anyone. And there was one guy who would come to the open mic every Monday, and he would take questions about his time in the mental hospital. And that was what he did at the open mic. And so don't know what that's relevant for, but it's just like, you go there to try your, what you thought was funny, your jokes, and then you see what's funny, and then you see what's not funny, and it's very clear what's not funny, and you're just like, okay, not funny, like don't do that, stick to what's funny, and that's how you discover how you're funny. 100%. And so that started the notes for me. Yeah,
no, definitely.
Brief comedy rant.
No, but it links to business, because it's, I guess, like, funnily enough, it's all about like trialing and testing, like
totally design process, man.
100%.
It's the same. I mean, it's the same thing. You're just designing a joke, designing a product, designing a product, podcast, design whatever you're designing. It's a process.
100%. And as you sort of mentioned, like both with when speaking about your comedy journey, but also with the business, it's, as you mentioned, it's that like trialing and error. Like sometimes, and it's also sometimes, as we sort of mentioned here, like whether it's, so I guess with comedy, it might be more around like where you do the joke, because I think one of my like favorite comedians, Trevor Noah, like he was talking, honestly, like when he left the Daily Show, I've spoken about it before, I was hoping for the longest time, I was like, if I just wait out, like, He'll wait for me. I'll be able to go on the Daily Show. Trevor Noah will interview me.
You'd be great. You'd be a daily correspondent. You'd be killer.
I would love it. And then he left, and I was just like, you know what? I get it. I was like, I get it, Trevor, but I would have loved to work with you. Even to
he's still around.
He's still around. I know you're not dead, but yeah, if you ever need someone to do, I'd honestly, like, if
Trevor, come on,
Trevor,
what are you doing?
You've heard it here first. Trevor, no, you've heard it here first. You got to get on the podcast. To be honest though, for that podcast, I would just tell him like, I'd love to bring him pick up the mic, but just interview me. Like, I don't want to talk like
such a fan.
Yeah, I'm like, I've been watching the show. Like, please, just interview me. Just, but yeah, literally, he was talking about it with Kevin Hart because they have interestingly enough, I think. For a business perspective, I like listening to it. I mean, it's funny, the podcast that Kevin Hart does. It's called Comedy Gold Mines.
I thought you were talking about the Ice Plunger one.
Oh, no. Oh, that
also, I'm super into Ice Plunge, so.
That as a podcast is, not even as a podcast, but that as a series is like, I feel like it's super, again, Kevin Hart, if you're looking for someone, I'll do it. It's incredibly funny. And if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But yeah, no, Kevin Hart, for his podcast, Comedy Gold Mines, he interviews like comedians, mainly from like the US, but he also talks about like a few in the UK that have sort of like popped off. And he was saying like,
it's great comedy.
100%.
Best comedy in Europe for sure.
Yeah, and like I think generally, as you mentioned here, like there's a lot of, I think like you said, it's harder to find those like small scenes where you can do like a stand-up comedy night if you're not already like a name.
Yeah, no, I don't really know what it's like here, but the reason I know that is because, funny enough, you know, my friend who I know from doing comedy, you know, so you see the same comedians doing the same jokes every, you know, and when you go to the open mic, they're like, I've heard this already. But, you know, so you get to know the people. And so one of my friends, Alex Burr, you know, go check her out. If you're ever in London, you should check her out. She has shows in London, and,
nice.
You know, that's what that's from her. So that's how, just quoting her on how the comedy scene works, I guess.
Yeah, no, 100%. And literally, that links to what I was going to say about Trevor Noah, because he was saying, like, when it comes to the joke, he said him and Kevin Hart were talking about their, like, comedy journey, and they said sometimes, as we mentioned here, sometimes with jokes, so two aspects. One, and I think linked to what you just said, sometimes you'll find as a comedian, and also arguably as a business person, that someone else beats you to the punch.
Oh, yeah.
So I think...
Totally.
Honestly, like... So Trevor Noah was talking about a time where I think it was either his friend or himself, he did this joke, like this is when he was just mainly known in South Africa. So he was doing a joke there, he did it, and then I think he said he came to America to see Chris Rock, and Chris Rock did his joke. And his friends were just like, oh my gosh, I don't remember if it was him or his friend, but they basically like turned around to the person and were just like, oh my gosh, like, he stole your joke. Like, he totally stole your joke.
That's a huge problem
but
in comedy.
100%. And to be honest, arguably sometimes in business. But with Trevor Noah, he was just like, generally, it annoys me. If I can find the clip, I'll include a link to it. But he said the thing that he found actually really great about it was he said, no, look, like, if I'm like Chris Rock is known as like he's one of the like most successful comedians out there, and he was just like, if I'm creating jokes that Chris Rock is doing and I can see it's doing really well,
you're on the right path.
You're on the right path. You're doing something right. So even like business wise, so as you mentioned, okay, Facebook implemented something that you were, you know, this was an idea you had. That clearly.
Here's something about that.
Oh, go ahead.
Here's something about that. So Facebook has this, you know, have you seen the Lex Friedman podcast? Yeah, you have?
Yeah.
So they basically, Facebook has developed this really in-depth way of, you know, mapping your face and your hands to some extent and your mouth and I don't know, like you. And you have to go through some body scans now at this stage of their development, but potentially you could do it with the phone. And correct me, I don't know, you know, if I'm saying something that's not true, but so you know they had this podcast, Lex Friedman and Mark Zuckerberg, and it was amazing. I mean, you know, they felt like they were in the room, like that's what they felt like. Like you know, I don't know, but I bet there's some, you know, interbrain synchrony happening there. Could be, you know, not proven like this, but let's see. I'm sure that will, you know, let's see. But there's, you know, even still, like, this is guessing. This is guessing your emotions, you know, and it might be amazing at it, but if I'm a psychologist, I want to see what's really happening. I don't want your avatar, even if it's amazing. And I don't even want to be wearing a virtual reality headset. I don't, you know, maybe it doesn't. I don't know what the future holds with that. But it seems to me that what you need in therapy, or what you need in therapy, is to observe what's actually happening. And I just don't trust Mark Zuckerberg with my therapy sessions. It's like the last guy I want involved in me talking about like my issue with my father or something. I love my father, but
it's the truth.
There's nothing about that. But just an example, like I wouldn't. That's not who I want in my therapy session. Like I just want me and my therapist or whoever. Like that's it.
Yeah, but no, like as we were talking about here, it's nice to see that with the work that you're doing, you've actually you thought about, okay, this is what we like. This is the idea. Okay, Facebook are trying to do something similar, but you're saying, you've clearly shown how, as you said, like people get surprised by it, but with your business, the person who's the face of it becomes like the go-to person. If the person's
great, man.
No, honestly, the business is in good hands. I promise the business is in good hands.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, it's the truth. Like, people generally think, I don't need to. I mean, I'm not saying you have to have a face of the brand, but even as you mentioned with like big brands, like some people do say like they don't like Facebook because of all the stuff with Mark Zuckerberg. In the same sense that some people say they don't use like they're never going to get a Tesla, or they won't use like I still call it Twitter, but X.
X, yeah. Is the X gonna catch on?
I don't know. That could be a whole podcast in itself because X. Honestly, I could.
It's always gonna be Twitter. Like
it just didn't make sense for me.
Twitter tweeting? What are you gonna do? X and Xing?
I was just like, what do you call it?
Weird. What are you doing there? That sounds like a little. You shouldn't be doing that.
And I was just Xing. It was also like the change in the name was so like. I was just like, okay, so if it was like another word, I was like, okay, if you could find a way to like, because like you said, like Twitter, and I'm tweeting, it's like a bird. Okay, it makes sense.
Awesome.
But I was like, X. What are you Xing? And then what?
That sounds weird.
It sounds weird. Yeah. And then what was really interesting, which was again when it comes to business, I guess linking it back is the marketing, because who was it? I think it was WWF did this really cool advert about the whole like change with Twitter about basically animal extinction. So
okay.
If I can find the picture, it's really smart marketing, because what they did is, so they showed how basically the first Twitter, like the logo for Twitter when it started was like an actual bird, had eyes, had like all of this stuff. And they showed that basically as the years had progressed, like it had gone away from this like very detailed bird to what it used to be of just a blue bird, with a side profile, it's 2D, to literally now being X. And they were just like, this shows like, how animals are being extinct and, we're not. And I was just like, you know what? Fair enough. That's a way to capitalize on like everyone's saying, am I happy with X? Am I not? And you're just like, oh yeah, technically, they're getting rid of an animal. And I was just
good way to draw attention to WWF.
Yeah. So I think definitely when it comes to business, the way you market it and having that like public relations, I think sometimes people think like, whatever I do as the business, won't like impact the business itself, but no, 100%. Like people,
it all manifests.
It all manifests, 100%. No, sorry. Just one last thing I wanted to say. I guess two things. Well, this and then the comedy thing.
Right.
So this are about like the manifest thing. As you mentioned. So for my master's in sustainability, entrepreneurship, and design, we had a module on consumer behavior, and we were talking about like everyone knows about it, but like the color schemes and how that represents like the brands. But they even said, okay, so when it comes to people buying stuff, I think it depends on the generation you grew up in, but for me, I wouldn't necessarily like buy into a company because like an influencer's buying it, or necessarily because my favorite celebrities are. But I will if I see, like the person's really friendly, they're kind. So like a lot of people get surprised. Like I say, as like me and my brother, we've been Xbox fans. Like we've only had we've had a Wii and stuff, but between Xbox and PlayStation, we've only had like an Xbox console. And I turn around and say the reason why we even like, there were issues sometimes with Xbox where the console wasn't as good as like, let's say a PlayStation. But I say the reason why we start with Xbox wasn't necessarily because like Xbox as a whole was the better console, had the better games, but it was because the person who's like, the main face of, I think he's the CEO of Xbox, Phil Spencer, like he's a friendly guy. He's like really friendly. He's always like, anytime Xbox makes up, he's apologizing. He's like made a face for himself being with the brand that people turn around and they're just like, you know what? I'm not happy. Like, and it's funny because I listened to a gaming podcast and the guy was saying, sometimes I'm really annoyed with Xbox, but I'll see an email or I see a video from Phil Spencer and I'll be like, okay, Xbox, like I get it. It's tough. Like, there were these issues that meant the product or the game couldn't be as good as you wanted. Like, it's okay. Like, maybe next time. And he was saying that the funny thing is that with other like gaming brands, he's like, no, this isn't good enough. Like, if I pay this much for a console or a game, I expect to get this much. But he said because Xbox like the people who are the faces of Xbox that go to like all these events, they're speaking, they're engaging with the gaming community. They don't keep themselves so separate or reclusive. They show their face. People are just like, yeah, I love the brand because like they're friendly, they're family orientated. They get themselves involved in stuff. They like I think one thing, because I've also got to make sure the recording doesn't cut off. But one thing to add to this is I think Xbox did a conference in 2019 that me and my brother went to. Now, that was nothing to say that Phil Spencer was going to be there. I had no idea he was going to be there. Get to the stage, they're just like, they've got a stage in the middle, they've got like a main, like the theatre place where it's going to be. So I was like, okay, so if he is going to come out, he's going to come out on that main theatre stage. But they were just like, oh, we want you guys to come around to this like small space. And I was like, okay, cool. Like everyone was crowding around. And then literally he just walked, through the crowd and everyone was like, oh my gosh, it's Phil Spencer, he's here. And he was just like, wait, what? And he literally walked to the crowd, got onto like this mini podium and then like took a selfie with like everyone in it. And I was just like, he didn't need to do that at all. Like we all would have been fine to see him on the stage, but he came out and like came to like engage with the fans. Like I know he like spoke to a few people, he shook hands, gave high fives.
It is big difference. Nintendo, Nintendo, it's a different vibe that they have 100%. with a lot of people. Like I think I heard that there was something about like, I think there was like a super, man, I'm such a nerd. There was like a Super Smash Bros. Tournament that was like a big tournament that wasn't associated with Nintendo, and they were like, you can't do that, it's not possible, you're not allowed, no you're not allowed. And like everyone loved that tournament, like people went to that, and it's a different I can see that I don't know, that has some sort of influence on consumer behavior. I hadn't thought about that. It's interesting.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't think about it, but yeah, having that consumer relation, like having that relationship with your consumers is important. So, and I think sometimes people feel like, oh, it has to be like, I might be a bit of an introvert and I'm just like, oh, if I'm the face of the brand, like, I don't feel comfortable being in front of the camera and stuff. But sometimes, people do have, I mean, it sounds kind of, it's not like like the face of the brand and I'm actually the one doing the decisions, but sometimes you'll find with like co-founders, like one person is just very extroverted. They're very good at like just, like talking about the product and like bringing in sales. So they'll be the person that's like, okay, cool. If we're pitching, if we're networking, they're going to be the person, and I'm going to be the person that, if they want to know more about like the mechanics or like the product or the service, I'm going to give them like the information, the data and stuff. And people feel like you can't have that in like a business, but it's good because you need, like you said, like you need a bit of both, because when you're so rigid and like there are businesses that can or have come across as like, they're strict. They're like, we're not going to make like a fancy event, or we're not going to do stuff. We're literally like, if we're going to update people, send them an email. If we're going to like do something fun, put it in a newsletter. Whereas some people are just like, no, like if we're going to announce like, especially with gaming, like if we're going to announce like a new game, we're going to do like a big gaming event. We're going to invite all these like fans and stuff. And I think one thing to say with Xbox is that element of like bringing in fans, because I didn't know this. Like me and my brother didn't know this. We were just literally looking like for ways to grow the podcast, and then we were just like, oh, why, like we talk about gaming, we like Xbox. Let's see if like Xbox do like affiliate programs, or they've got like some program we could join. Then I found out Xbox have an ambassador program. So I was like, cool, let me check this out. Let me look into it. I was like, oh, if they've got it, you're gonna have to fill in like an application form and do all this. No, literally, you've just got to like prove that you've like you've got an Xbox, either you play on Xbox or PC, but you use the Xbox app, and you've played games through your Xbox account. And yeah, that's all you have to have. And you get signed up as an ambassador. Literally this Friday, they've got an event, so I'm going to be attending that, completely free. And I was just like me and my brother, when we saw it, we were just like, no, you got to be kidding me. Like,
I wish Nintendo was like that. I love their games.
Yeah, like I think as a brand,
they're so good.
They are really good, and it's just I think as a brand, people feel like you can't just like have those like small things to like keep your fans interested. But
I agree. I do want to also say, because like a big part of this for me is like, I want to design it to make the connection and therapy the best. Like that's the focus. Like the focus is on human beings. Like the focus is on seeing what this does to interactions, and like how it improves it. Maybe it makes it worse. I don't know. I think it's better. So do most people. Pretty much everyone that's tried it. But like that's the focus. Like the focus is that. Like this is a product for emotional connection. That's the focus. Like not like I want to maximize that, and like I want to focus on the science behind that and conduct good science about that, so that for whatever other purpose it's going to be used for, you can be confident that, okay, look at that. We know this is used for, an emotional connection, an area where emotional connection's at the forefront. So this is going to help that, in my long distance relationship, in my parents are in California, in my, whatever, whoever I want to speak with in a one-on-one connected setting. It's a bit of a different video call than a video call, like a call for, I used to work for a big consulting firm, and people didn't have their call on their video on, or it's like, sometimes very impersonal, and you can really see that effect. Like if you have a boss who has control over what you do and you don't meet them in real life, during COVID, for example, you can really see the disconnect, and you can really feel it in your life. So like just to improve that in any way would be good.
Yeah, and 100% this does. And it was funny because I can't believe I didn't think about this when we were talking about this. But like when you sort of mentioned like the using it for the different purposes, like I can definitely see anyone on Twitch or anyone doing like live streaming using this, because it is really, like I said, it's a really great product.
Thanks.
Yeah, man, no, honestly, man, it's the truth. One last, I guess, on the comedy thing, and then
comedy.
Yeah,
comedy is always good. Yeah.
Honestly,
I can talk about comedy all day. Yeah.
Honestly, I wasn't expecting it to appear on the podcast, but I'm loving this, man. I'm loving to being able to drop my.
Who's your favorite? So you said
Trevor Noah is definitely up. Top. I'm gonna have to do top 5 ones, is or top, I'm not gonna put a number. Top ones is probably best. Bernie Mac, I really like.
Bernie Mac.
Yeah.
All right. Nice.
My brother
was not expecting Bernie Mac.
My brother was a big Bernie Mac fan, and I was just like a lot of the films, like I think it's Rat Race.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
In London.
Yeah.
Talking about Bernie Mac.
Yeah. Like Bernie Mac, I loved.
That's awesome, man.
Chris Rock.
Amazing.
Dave Chappelle as well is another one. Kevin, like the thing is, like Kevin Hart. No, it's like I generally.
Okay, I want to be on.
No, I 100% want to be like.
Come on.
I love Kevin Hart's I love Kevin Hart's.
Yeah,
I think I was thinking
I love you, Kevin Hart.
No, but generally, I think for me it was funny because like before I was just like, I never saw his comedy sketches, but I saw him in like comedy films and stuff. So when I started watching his sketches and stuff, I was like, is it going to be similar?
Kevin Hart.
Yes, I thought it was going to be, because I think one clear thing about and I think also that's why people now say like the way Kevin Hart as a like comedian has like marketed himself and the way he does business is amazing.
It's killer, yeah.
Because when he was doing all these comedy films and stuff, and people were just like, he's not really funny, or like he's trying to like impersonate like Dave Chappelle or Bernie Mac or Cedric the Entertainer, like they're all saying this.
Bro.
But literally like he is really like his comedy sketches are really funny, and like I think during COVID, like, I was just like I was going back and listening to old ones because interesting fact to like put out there is I was looking into. So I follow like on Instagram like a random fact page. So they put like where they get the facts from. It's from a research paper. They put it there, and they were saying if you're ever like tired or you're going on like a long commute and you're driving, always play comedy, because they said people will play like rock music, or they might play like screaming music, and they'll be like, oh yeah, this is going to keep me awake. But they said you won't feel tired if you're actually like just laughing, you're having a good time. And I can prove that, because there are times when me and my brother, we're just like watching like sketches online of like whether it's like Trevor Noah, Dave Chappelle, and you're watching these like comedy specials, and you're just sitting there and you're just like laughing, and then you look at the time and be like, oh wow, it's like really like time has passed. I didn't even notice this much has happened. But yeah, no, comedy sketches I definitely recommend, like if you're going on a long commute, use. But yeah, going back to the favorite comedians. So Kevin Hart is, so yeah, Dave Chappelle, Bernie Mac, Chris Rock, Kevin Hart definitely, Trevor Noah definitely. I'm trying to think.
That's top 5.
Top 5. If I have to, yeah. If I have to do a top 5, those would have to be my top 5, which I know for any, like, I think the reason why, because when like people in the audience are just like, oh, he grew up in the UK, why didn't he say any UK comedians?
America's got great comedy.
Yeah, I feel like, especially like even there was a.
It's because I'm telling you, man, it's actually because of that setup. I mean, like, UK has prolific comedians, no question.
No, 100%.
But I really do think that way of doing it, where it's just not like you're just there to fail, man. Like everyone sucks at the beginning. You're not supposed to be. If you're funny at the beginning, you are Chris Rock, okay? Yeah. And when you go to see Chris Rock sometimes at a comedy club and he's trying new material, you'll see him fail and it's not funny. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that could happen. But it's material. Like, no one is making up what they're saying. Like, this is this is like they know every beat to say 100%. And they know when you're going to laugh because they've done it a million times.
100%.
So, yeah, like, awesome. Also, I have to say some of mine, okay?
Yeah,
I have to say some of mine. So, I love Bo Burnham. Bo Burnham's great.
That's a good one.
I don't know, is Bo Burnham top 5 though? Such a hard question.
That's what I mean.
Top 5. I thought I was going to be like, oh, this, but it's actually kind of hard.
It's really hard.
I mean, Chappelle is there. He might be number 1. Chappelle might be number 1. I really love Tom Segura. Do you know Tom Segura? Yeah. I love his comedy. Okay, he's really funny. Maybe Bo Burnham.
Okay.
Because he's so good. And he's just such a talent and such an artist about it. And I love that.
You know what I just realized? Oh, no. I'm going to...
You got to replace one? All right, good. I'll be thinking.
So, yeah, I think this is... Oh, I'm liking this. I think this is a nice way to conclude it, talking about our favorite comedians.
Sure. Yeah, I need to add my last 2.
I think, you know what? Because definite top... Staying in the top 3... you know what? I don't even want to remove Bernie Mac because I like Bernie Mac, but I'm like, I think my brother is
Bernie Mac. I haven't heard that Bernie Mac in a while.
Like, I think generally, like going back and watching some of his stuff, even like films, like I think I don't know, like even like I know Kevin Hart's mentioned it. I know Dave Chappelle, Cedric the Entertainer mentioned it. Oh, you know what? Actually, no, I've never watched his comedy sketches. Oh, damn it. There's too many. Like, I'm thinking about too, because I was just like, I really love, like, Chris Tucker. I really love his sketches.
He's great.
I was just like, Cedric the Entertainer, I like Steve Harvey. I haven't watched a lot of his comedy sketches, but again, like, I think Steve Harvey as a person is kind of funny. Oh, geez. But no, I don't know who I would swap out, but one person that has to be on the list is this person called Nathan Caton, who's like, they're a UK comedian. So I was like, I couldn't think of any. When we were talking, I was just like, yeah, how could I forget Nathan Caton? Because to me, he's very, I've forgotten the sketch.
Do you know Daniel Sloss?
I don't.
He's a UK comedian. He's really funny.
Okay.
He has a comedy special or 2 on Netflix. He's really good.
Oh, check him out.
One of my favorite UK comedians.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't do it before, but now I do it like most of the time is if I'm like on YouTube or I feel like, I just need something to play in the background, but I don't necessarily know what to watch.
Oh, I know another one. Bobby Lee.
Okay.
Bobby Lee's great.
Okay.
Gotta love Bobby
Yeah.
Lee.
Okay. Have you got your last one? It is a tough
It is
question.
hard, man. I don't know. It's so tough, to be honest.
Because I'm like, I think generally my answer would change. Like you are come back and ask me.
Neil Brennan.
Okay.
Do you know Neil Brennan?
The name sounds familiar. Yeah.
He does a comedy special. I highly recommend watching, called Three Mics.
Okay.
And he's on stage and there's 3 mics, and one mic he goes to is only for jokes. One mic is, I believe, just for talking to the audience, and then one mic is for, like, he struggles with deep depression. And it's like talking about like mental health and like his mental health and things like this. And it's like, it's a prolific comedy special. Yeah, really, I think he's in there for me. Yeah, and he's also, co-writer of Chappelle's Show.
Wow. Yeah.
Because you gotta.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I had no idea about, because as a comedy concept, I think that's like really good.
Yeah.
Because
so many good ones though. Anthony Jeselnik. I mean, come on.
Honestly, the list. I think generally the list would
could be here all night.
But yeah, I think one thing to end it on, both from one from a business sense, one from a comedy sense. So I'll start with the comedy one. I think if you are looking for a comedy podcast, I have mentioned a couple, but one that definitely, I think if you're looking for UK comedians to check out, is Evil Genius. So that's even why I remembered Nathan Caton, because so Evil Genius is all about, it used to start off with just historical figures. Now they've also started to do like fictional characters, but it's whether they are basically evil or if they're a genius. So the concept sounds really simple, because you might be like, I don't know, like Batman's a genius because he's like a good guy, or you might say, I don't know, like, if you don't know about, like, I don't even want to spoil it, but the first episode I would definitely recommend to watch is the episode they did on Adi Dassler, who is the founder. Adi Dassler's his surname. The brothers who founded Adidas. They did an episode all about the story of Adidas, how it came to be, the controversial history that comes with that.
Didn't the guy start Puma?
Yeah, it was. So the brothers, like a very quick overview, but definitely, please, like, if you're looking for something funny to listen to, it is hilarious.
Listen to it.
Because literally, so the brothers, so there were 2 brothers. So again, like what we were talking about today, one of them was very charismatic. He's very ongoing, like he's a people person. The other one, he's all about the designs. So when they started, they're like working together. They joined.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which one is which. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think Adi Dassler is the like, I think he was the people person, because I think he's the one that ends up with Adidas, and the other one who was more about the designs left and then went to Puma. Started Puma.
We say Adidas.
Yeah. That's how you say it in the States, man.
It is Adidas, yeah.
But literally, like, so they ended up, like, I guess a quick history stop is they then were designing clothes for the Nazi party, which is where it gets a bit controversial. And that's where the whole like evil or genius thing comes, because basically there was this whole thing that as time progressed and like as the war was progressing, the brothers started to like disagree with each other. So there was that whole argument of one brother was just like, everyone like knows you as the like fun loving, like he's the face of the brand. And the other brother was just like, I'm literally like the guy in the chair. I'm designing all this stuff. I'm coming up with all these creative designs, but because I'm not as charismatic as you, I'm not getting that same level of respect. Then there was apparently one night, which is on the Evil Genius, they talk about like key like facts or like key moments about the person. So they spoke that there was one night when apparently the British were bombing Germany. And the 2 brothers were there, and they were in the bomb shelter. They were going to the bomb shelter, or they were in the bomb shelter. And then one of the brothers was talking about like, he was just like, he pointed upstairs and was just like, they're making so much racket, and was talking about, the story goes that apparently he was talking about like the bombs falling around them. What happened was worse, is as he pointed upstairs, the other brother's wife and him were coming down the stairs. So the story goes that one of the brothers felt like he was actually talking about his wife and was saying that they're actually being like, they're so loud, they talk a lot. Whereas it might have actually just been the actual raid that was the like air raid that was going on. So and then it gets worse because apparently during the Nuremberg trials, one of the brothers ends up basically like on trial. I think actually no, both the brothers ended up on trial, and one of the brothers basically like almost sold the other brother out and was just like, oh no, like we joined the party because of him. Like we were stayed there because of him. All of this. And apparently this led to like big disagreements, and it ended up, as we sort of mentioned here, the brothers split into two different brands. So it was Puma and Adidas. And apparently like the whole disagreement went further than the brothers. So I don't remember when the episode came out, but they said like even into the 2000s, which is like many years after like the brand started and World War II ended, that there was still a bit of hostility because the town was literally almost like, think Romeo and Juliet, but like you're in a small town, because apparently half of the town was like, if one side had the Puma factory, one had an Adidas factory. If I worked in an Adidas factory, or my family worked there, and maybe I didn't work there, I couldn't marry or date anyone from the Puma factory, and vice versa.
That's extreme.
It got to the point that they were saying in the podcast, like families were divided because they were like, oh, actually, I'm in love with this person from the Puma factory, or oh hey, like I work in the I'm fed up with the factory, I'm gonna go to the Puma factory, and they'd be like, cool, like I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like if you're over there, we're not friends. And yeah, apparently it ended peacefully. They had they have rival football matches, local, like within their local teams, and just like play against each other. But yeah, like. And I guess linking it to the whole business thing of like how you're represented as your brand can like impact even more than just you or like your friends and relationships like that. Like these were two brothers that didn't know that their disagreement would lead to like a whole town being divided for so long. But yeah, no, literally,
that's crazy.
Yeah. And so yeah, if you're ever looking for a new podcast, I say Evil Genius is really good because they're all the comedians who are talking about these historical or fictional characters. All the people talking about these fictional or historical characters are all comedians. So it's hosted by a comedian. There's like, so usually
that's very entertaining. Then
it's the fun, like that one was super funny. And Nathan Caton was cracking a lot of jokes. I really like it. Some of them are like hits and misses. I'd say as well, like especially if you're like, so like I'm a comic book fan. So when they did one on Batman, and then they did one about like Darth Vader, about like whether he's evil or genius, like some of the stuff they were commenting on, I was like, there's a bit of like, there's a bit more than what you're saying. Like you don't know all the facts. But then also when you take, I guess kind of like we were saying before, like taking it as what it is I just take it as like it's comedians making a joke about something. Like they're not saying like, oh yeah, we're experts in Marvel or Star Wars or DC or gaming or whatever. But they're literally just like, hey, look, like we're just going to joke around for the next hour and a half about like a historical person or a fictional person.
They're just trying to find the laughs.
Exactly.
Everything they're saying is just for that. And it's great. 100%.
It's like that podcast is really funny. I'd say the Richard Nixon one is really interesting. Yeah, they did one Nixon, which was very interesting to like learn about. They spoke more detail about like
America.
Yeah.
Oh, where do we want to start with? Probably.
Oh gosh, that again could be a whole podcast in itself. But yeah, no, literally. So they didn't. I'd say the next one, if you're looking to learn more about like Watergate and not just get like, oh, like people reference it and you're just like, what is Watergate? It's really good. The Star Wars one on Darth Vader is really good from like because like they also describe it that like at the end of the day, Darth Vader as a villain, like they end up saying he's evil. Like it's not a surprise. But they were just like the way the character's written, the way he's been portrayed, all the stuff that he does, like he is so like he's like, if you think evil characters, he's definitely going to be on like the top list of like iconic evil villains, because like people were just like, if you think about like all this, yeah, it's a really good episode. They dive into like his whole backstory. But yeah, definitely recommend that. But yeah, the one that I would say, they do a Batman one as well, which is good. But the one that I would say you have to watch is definitely the Adi Dassler one, because like I didn't know all the facts about like, I knew obviously like their brand. So like, and I think it's funny because I think they mention in the episode, because everyone thinks, oh, like Adidas and Nike are like rivals, you know.
Something about that
Go
is
ahead.
that you are not allowed to wear Adidas in Nike.
Yeah.
Like if you work for Nike, you can't.
Yeah.
Like you're not allowed. I at my old consulting firm, one of my bosses used to work for them for Nike, and they were like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's like very bad. You're not allowed.
Literally, like, and it's funny because one of my
I think they'll make you change. I think
100%.
I think they'll send you home or give you something to wear or something.
Yeah, because it's like, and I think even so for me to hear that, like, oh, like Puma, because Puma's still like very, like, it's still a well-known brand, it's still iconic. But when you think of rivals to Adidas, you immediately think Nike. So for me to hear that, like, oh yeah, like
America says Nike.
Yeah. But no, it's honestly, like, it's. I think for me, that's the thing I look back on. I'm just like, that's incredibly interesting because
fascinating stuff.
if like most people might assume that, oh yeah, like I did. Like, I guess on the last note, before we sort of wrap up, the funny thing that I didn't know is someone in my old workplace was saying Lidl and Aldi, they were brothers. They're brothers, and I don't know.
What is this with German brothers?
I don't know. but they had a disagreement, and then they
started rival grocery stores.
And what's really interesting is when you look into it. Like as a both
what
of their
branding to like compete in.
Exactly. And branding wise, their colours are very similar. Yeah. So I was just like, it's just like, wow, because you could say,
don't be getting a little apple, you know.
Like you just look at it and you're just like, okay, so you know, Puma and Adidas, like even I don't know about like back when they both started, but like now their designs aren't very similar. Like again, most people say like Nike and Adidas, like some of their designs are quite similar, but yeah, literally like Aldi and Lidl, the shops are almost set up in the same way. The colours are the same way. The adverts obviously are a bit different. But it was like, for the most part, they're very similar. But yeah, my colleague said that they were brothers. They used to like, I guess, I don't know which one was the first one, but they separated and then started rival companies. So I was like, fair enough. But yeah, I guess if you're going to go to business with your brother, make sure you both are happy with it. So you don't then trying to both corner one piece of the market.
Or, work on your relationship with your brother in
exactly.
therapy. I mean, come on. Why are you fighting your family? Like,
exactly. No, this is good. This is good. See, if you're looking for something to use, you never know. If you're looking to get into therapy and you want a device, keep an eye out. But yeah, we've been talking for a long time, but I've enjoyed this conversation because
me too. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you told me,
awesome, man.
If you told me at the start, we'd be talking about comedy. I mean, obviously we're talking about business, but comedy as well, and discussing.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to that.
I am so glad we got to that. Being able to drop my comedy knowledge.
We gotta do a comedy class. Man.
Honestly, man, we might have to do an episode all about
I want to be on that. Not anything to do with this.
Just honestly, I think the comedy one would be good. Let us know in the comments. But yeah, I think two things. I guess since we talked about comedy, I think I've got to talk about two. Well, one, yeah. If you're looking for a comedian to check out, he's really funny. Check out Kyra Gray. She did a Comedy Central UK special, which people might know her from. She's done a lot of podcasts and stuff, so do check her out on there. But yeah, we've been talking about business today, and that's concluding the Hustle Chronicles. It's been great talking to you, Sean, about business. It's been great to learn more about like how the product works, talking about like a wide range of things on like this need for connection and whether it's, through therapy, whether it's through like building confidence in yourself, to have something that can help is really good. Before we end and wrap things up, if our audience are looking to maybe connect with you, maybe learn a bit more about the business, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so our website is moreconnection.co and our Instagram is @moreconnectionco.
Perfect. Cool. But yeah, thank you to you, our wonderful audience, for coming back for another episode. If you like this episode, a like, comment, subscribe is always appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss either new episodes of the new episodes of the Hustle Chronicles. It's been a very long day. Or any of our other podcasts, then please make sure you click the notification bell so you can be notified immediately when those episodes come out. if you want to help support the podcast, you want to maybe get some incentives, please do check out our Patreon page. The link is in the description. You get early access to episodes. We're looking and exploring the idea of giving merchandise as well for our Patreon members. So you might be seeing something about that if you're a Patreon member. If you're not, please do check it out. It's £4 a month. And finally, if you want to know about our other podcasts, so as we've mentioned, we split some of our stuff, mainly the entertainment stuff, into separate sections. So if you're looking to learn about gaming, then pick up The Controller. If you're looking to know more about the world of anime, check out Senseis of Anime. And finally, if you are looking to learn more about sci-fi and fantasy, know about the lore of your favorite TV shows and films, check out the two maesters, Joshua and Morgan. As you've seen, they have done episodes on Ahsoka. They're going to wrap up Ahsoka. But yes, don't worry. They're going to be doing episodes on Loki. Obviously, that's come out. It's going to be a big thing. So yeah, they'll be doing all of that. And I think I won't, you've heard it here first. If I have to correct myself in the next episode that we record, I will correct it. But to my knowledge, they will be doing like a live reaction to the Loki season finale. So keep an eye out for that, because we're going to send out the link. We will be live streaming it through most likely YouTube and Twitch. So if you're not already subscribed on YouTube, or you're not subscribed to our Twitch page, please check out our link tree. You can find all the links there. But yeah, that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much again, and we will see you the next time when we learn about a new entrepreneur and their business.